premise fails, and it must, Comtean sociology reveals poverty. In fact, it does not succeed in its intent to be the science of society. It provides no answers to the crucial questions: how do the action of individuals co-adapt? How is the social order of an open society made possible? How does one explain social change, leaving aside the presumed law of progress? All these urge us to take a closer look at the method adopted by Kant. He claimed that social order must be intentionally determined through the work of a minority which possess a superior knowledge, and this knowledge legitimizes the suppression of other individuals' preferences. This is the core of methodological collectivism, which is the means, as Friedrich von Hayek underscored, of putting a collectivistic political program into effect. It amounts to saying that if a methodological collectivism fails, collectivism loses its intellectual basis. Indeed, Hayek himself wrote, the pretension that conscious individual reason can grasp all the aims and all the knowledge of society or of humanity, the belief that these aims are best achieved by conscious central directions, loses its foundations. Collectivistic approach is entirely in conflict with the Austrian theory of rationality, which rules out the existence of any privileged source of knowledge. This means that it is already irrational to think that there may be individuals who are repositories of a superior knowledge. In this regard, Hayek stated, when the truth or the falseness of a statement is no longer decided on the basis of a logical argument and empirical test, but according to the social position of a person who made it, when in consequence it becomes the membership of a class or race, and when it is claimed the sure instinct of a particular class or a people is always right, reason has been driven out. But eliminating individual autonomy and critical reason is precisely Kant's aim, just as it will be that of Marx. In the end, it is at the basis of the totalitarian regimes of the 20th century, in whose dynamics we find an additional tool of the collectivistic arsenal, the reification of collective concepts. It is the idea that only society exists, not the individual, or the idea that next to the individual there is a much more valuable reality, separate and distinct, which is of some form of a collective group. Kant did not hesitate to say, to the eye of positivism, man properly so-called does not exist, since our whole development and every aspect is due to society. According to Marx, only classes exist, and the historical German school of economics will not dodge the collectivistic imperative of duplicating reality. Gustav Schmoller will say that with the word Volkswirtschaft, a collective name has been created, which is at the same time an individual name, because including under that term the particular economies of an entire people, it shows us that all economies generate a group that can and must be considered real. The reification of a collective concept is nothing more than ontological collectivism, and it is an expedient whereby the minority can say that they do not speak for themselves, but rather as true representatives of society, of class, of the nation, of race, and so on. Those refined collective names are therefore genuine masks. In other words, what happens is that it is actually the collectivist who exalts individual reason more because he relies on a privileged minority, on privileged minorities. This is exactly the opposite of what is done by the individualist who sustains the process of social cooperation. This was rendered by Hayek as follows. It is the theoretical collectivist who exalts individual reason and demands that all forces of society be made subject to the direction of a single mastermind, while it is the individualist that recognizes the limitation of the powers of individual reason and consequently advocates freedom as a means for the fullest development of the powers of the interindividual process. Not only that, the reification of a collective concept deeply affects the principle of personal responsibility. In fact, social phenomena are no longer determined by human actions. They are not causes, they are merely the consequence of the intervention of those reified collective entities on us. Durkheim benefited from the legacy of Kant and Rousseau, and was influenced by the historical German school of economics. He made an extensive use of the notion of a privileged source of knowledge. He went so far as to say that the state is the very organ of social thought, the social brain. Such statements also include the reification of the state. Actually, reification is the tool of the collectivistic arsenal Durkheim used the most, especially with reference to the concept of society. Like Kant, Durkheim considered the competition as the cause of all moral anarchy and political anarchy. He thought that if one takes this anarchic competition as an ideal, there would be confusing sickness with a condition of good health. Still in agreement with Kant, Durkheim believed that politics must set a hierarchy of mandatory ends. Kant entrusted such a task to scientific men. Durkheim assigned it to a group of officials, of bureaucrats. The fact is that the flat acceptance of this essentially collectivistic paradigm prevented Durkheim from exploring any other solution. In the face of the advancement of the market society, Durkheim wrote that it seemed to him a miracle of logic if altruism could be deduced from egotism, the love of society from the love of oneself, and the wool from the part. And the American sociologist Talcott Parsons, who tried to underpin the sociology of Durkheim, manifested